You're listening to Word Slinger Podcast, episode 140, Archaeological Thrillers, or the Importance of Being Ernest Dempsey. This episode of the Word Slinger Podcast is brought to you by Draft to Digital. Convert your manuscript, distribute it online, and get support the whole way at drafttodigital.com.
It's the Word Slinger Podcast, where story matters. Build your brand, write your book, redefine who you are. It's all about the story here. What's yours? Now, here's the guy who invented Pants Optional, Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger.
Word Slinger.
Hey everybody, this is Kevin Tomlinson, the Word Slinger. Thank you so much for tuning in. You keep coming back. You're like a cat I fed. So I recently was on another podcast. I was on the this is a new show actually called, and let me just pull it up so that I don't get this wrong. It's a brand new show called Hybrid Author Podcast, and it's with Rekha J and Brian Williamson. You might want to check this out. It's a cool. If you go to hybridauthorpodcast.com, I am episode 17. It was a great interview. But in the conversation, Rekha actually said that she went back and listened to the very first Word Slinger podcast episode, and that she was impressed by the fact that my theme song and my intro had not changed from day one, which was remarkable. And I agree. I've listened to a lot of podcasts, and there are always these moments where they do a rebrand and that sort of thing. But I have always felt like the vibe of this show was perfectly set with that intro. It's exactly what I wanted, so I've never dared change it. But anyway, I don't hear about it much these days. A lot of people have in the past commented about my theme song in particular. So I think people will dig it. Anyway, go check out that podcast. It's new. I'd love to see it take off. They've got a great look on the site. I love the artwork and everything, and I love the way they're doing it. It's a good show. Check it out. I believe in hybrid publishing. Actually, I think that's the future of publishing. I think we will see a move toward hybridization as time goes by. Mostly because the tools for indie publishers are improving to the point where the traditional publishing world would be insane not to start utilizing them themselves. And if you're going to do that, start pulling from this pool of highly talented and highly marketing savvy and business savvy authors, and then everybody starts making a lot more money. If you've got the muscle of the traditional industry behind you and their resources behind you, plus a smart, savvy author who knows how to do the marketing and knows how to network and knows how to specifically tailor a book / product for their audience. All these things coming together, man, it just makes sense. It's insane to think that it's not going to become the future of the business. So check out that podcast. I'll put a link to that in the show notes below, so you can, or show notes below. I just finished doing the YouTube version of the show, so I'll put a link in the show notes of this episode, which you can find at wordslingerpodcast.com. Now, my guest today is a guy I've had the privilege of sitting beside, having some drinks with, and having a lot of long conversations with. He's a hell of a guy. His name is Ernest Dempsey. Now, he is, like me, an archaeological thriller author. Now, here's what's cool about that. The two of us were at NINC in Orlando this past year, and we were hanging out, and we were talking about our work, and we were describing it to each other, and we were like, there's just there has to be a term. There has to be a subcategory for this kind of work, and I think it was Ernest, actually, Ernie, who said they were archaeological thrillers. And I'm like, that's it. We're going to coin that phrase. Well, we didn't coin that phrase because it's been around for a while, apparently. And Guys like Steve Berry and Dan Brown are archaeological thriller authors, or considered such. Although Steve Berry likes to refer to his work, I think, as international thriller authors, or international thrillers. But it was profound to us, and we started using the term, and now it perfectly fits our genre. So we talk about that in this interview. I think you're going to get a lot out of this one, depending on your own career. There's a lot in here, really, that I think is going to be useful. Not the least of which is, Army and I both share a similar perspective on marketing. And I don't know. We don't really go into this as deep in this interview. But he and I have been batting ideas back and forth lately about, being very personable with your audience and your readers in like emails and that sort of thing. I've actually pulled back on a lot of my marketing. I don't run any ads right now at all. Well, I run some on Amazon. But they're kind of running by default at this point. I've been sort of dropping back to baseline, communicating with my existing readers on my mailing list in a much more personable way, getting fantastic results from that. Turns out if you treat human beings like human beings, they like you better and they want to do things to help you. So the best marketing advice you're ever going to get is to treat other people well. So all that said, let's hop into this interview. Now, after the interview, stick around. I've got some industry news. Some very cool stuff has happened. Man, there is an insane amount of cool crap happening in the indie publishing industry right now. It's insane. So definitely stick around. You're going to want to hear these things. And we'll do the housekeeping and all that stuff at the end as well. So take care. Enjoy this interview with Ernest Dempsey, and I'll see you on the other side. Hey, everybody. This is, of course, Kevin Tomlinson, and I'm talking to a guy. I've met this cat at least once in IRL, we'll say, at NINC. This is Ernest Dempsey. Now, here's the deal. Ernest Dempsey, he's the author of the Shaun Wyatt thrillers, and those are, as he pointed out, archaeological thrillers. Let me turn off those alerts, by the way. But now I've got Ernest to thank or blame, depending on how you look at it, for finally having a way to refer to my Dan Kotler thrillers, man. So I owe you big for that one, because I've been banging my head against the table for a good solid year now, trying to figure out the best way to categorize that. So welcome to the show, man.
Thank you for having me. I appreciate it. I'm actually turning my alerts off on my phone to make sure that I don't have.
I know, yeah. I'm a cautionary tale now.
It's usually on vibrate. It was off. I was just making sure. So
yeah. So yeah. Well, anyone listening, that was Johnny Andrews who just dinged me. So you can go yell at him. So man, first of all, it was fantastic hanging out with you at NINC, because you and I think we're very like-minded. Although you're more into sports than I am by far. I have no serious love for sports.
I wish I wasn't, because all of my teams are terrible. From baseball to basketball, or I don't watch basketball, but baseball to football, and it's.
Well, I did become a Houston Astros fan recently. They made it easy on me.
That was a great World Series. That was cool. I was rooting hard for them. Apologies to my California fan base, but it was great to see, and the city of Houston needed that. But it was also, I don't like to see franchises go so long without getting a title.
No kidding.
All of my franchises do that. So
right. I mean, from the beginning of time, basically, was the wait. Yeah. The thing is, my wife and I, we both love baseball. We'll watch baseball. That's one of the few sports that we get sort of gung-ho about. And so we were actually traveling during the final, two games of the series, watching it in, random bars at, all across Colorado Springs and that sort of thing. So there's an extra veneer of awesome associated with it now, because we were celebrating. It was the weirdest thing to be in a completely different ecosystem, and people are rooting for our home team. So makes you feel appreciated, man. So aside from sports, you have a healthy interest in archaeological thrillers, I'm told. Why don't you tell me a little bit about the Shaun Wyatt thrillers, man?
Well, what would you like to know?
I'm reading my first one now. The very first one. The introductory book for me is your latest book.
The first book?
No. I'm reading your most current one. The one that you just
the newest one. So you dove in with book 14, yeah.
Yeah. Is
So
that bad? Should I jump back?
No, it's fine. So are you finding your way around okay, like with the
So
characters in the world and everything?
Yeah, so far so good. I've barely scratched the surface on it, but yeah, so far, man. I don't want to stab you or anything.
No, you're good. So the Sean Wyatt archaeological thrillers are they're a series I came up with, I don't know, 2006, 2007, something like that. And the first idea came from a place I visited in Northwest Georgia called Fort Mountain State Park. And I'd been going there on picnics and stuff since I was a kid.
Right.
But I hadn't been there in years. And then around like 2000, I don't know, 6 or 7, I went there on a picnic with the girl I was dating and my cousins and my cousin and his family. And we're walking around, and that was the first time I'd been there as an adult. And I started reading the historical placards that they had on the site. And there's this ancient wall that's there, and nobody knows who put it there. They don't know why it's there. It's not a circular wall, so it's not a defensive, like military style wall. It's linear. It kind of, undulates, looks like a snake sort of. And there's all these giant pits on one side of it, like every so often, and they're not spaced out evenly. But I was like, man, this is fascinating. Like, I never realized. I've been coming there my whole life, and it was nobody knew why it was there and who built it. I was like, that sounds like a great plot device for a story.
Yeah.
So I'd enjoyed reading Clive Cussler a lot, and in college, I used to read a lot of fantasy stories in high school and before high school, and I read a lot of the Dragonlance Chronicles and stuff like that. And then, but I got into history when I was in high school, and one of my teachers, Mr. Pinnell, really turned me on to history, and so I started reading things that were skewed that way, especially when I got to college, and that's how I found like Cussler and those guys. And so, I thought, man, I would love to write a story about this mystery. And so I came up with the characters and built the fictional International Archaeological Agency. I couldn't come up with a better name than that. And so I think I crack a few jokes in a couple of the books about how the name needs to change because that's such a mouthful.
Right.
And Cussler's got like Numa, and he's got that whole thing. And
right.
This is not marine based, and I'm definitely not ripping his idea off, but I wanted to do something similar because I just thought it was a cool idea. And so I created these characters, and they travel the world salvaging stuff, and sometimes, finding themselves in trouble and deep, and finding themselves in deep mysteries and things like that. So that's how it came about. But the first book was certainly it was definitely plot driven. Like it was, when the experts, they don't do that, do character driven stories, but it seemed to work out okay. And now I really focus hard on the characters. So.
Oh, really? You kind of changed the approach then.
Yeah. So what I do is I find the plot device I want to use. And the next one, the next Sean Wyatt book, which will be out in probably late winter, is going to be a Templar story. Because I've been putting that off for a while. I wanted to make sure I did it right. Everybody does.
Every thriller writer has to write something about the Knights Templar.
Yeah. And I've had lots of readers asking me to do it. I'm like, I've been waiting because everybody's done that, and I want to make sure I do something special. So I'm researching that a little bit. But what I do now is I find the device, like, okay, Knights Templar, and then I create the characters behind. I do that up front, and I really dive in and try to get to know them. And I didn't want to do that originally because I was lazy.
Right.
It seemed like a lot of work, but now it's like I like doing it that way, and it makes the story so much richer and more fun to write. So I don't know if I answered your question.
You did too. You totally did. You totally did. Okay, so your the first book was inspired by essentially a trip, right?
Yep.
So what about the subsequent books? Like, where are you taking your inspiration? Where are you finding the stories?
Yeah, so that is a good question. Well, so just to touch on my characters really quick, forgot to do that. My characters are Sean Wyatt's the main character, but his sidekick is almost like a co-main character, Tommy Schultz. I really liked how Clive did the character. They had him and his best friend, Dirk Pitt, and his best friend Al Giardino, or they're always in trouble together. So I really like that. So I wanted to do that. Sean's a former government agent, and he wanted to get out of the game. He was working for an extrajudicial agency called Axis, and Tommy he decided to start working with his friend Tommy, and that's how they became. They got into all this mischief together. But as far as where it's like how do I find stuff? Yeah, so sometimes it comes from like places I've been. So I was fortunate enough to travel a little bit when I was in high school and in college, and then a little bit after that as well. So sometimes what I write stories about are places that I have been physically.
Right.
And then sometimes I have to find stuff. So I go out on the internet and I start looking for mysteries. But usually what happens is I just keep an eye on the magazine rack at Barnes and Noble, and I look at things. In fact, I posted this on my author fan page. It's not lying around here, I don't think. Oh, it might be in my bag. So this is why this is important, so you keep an eye on the stuff that on the internet that comes through your news feed or whatever. Sometimes I do active searching for, current things in the world of history and archaeology. And by the way, I'm no archaeologist. I'm not an expert at, detailing little bits of rock and dirt and stuff like that. So when it's called an archaeological thriller, it's real heavy on the thriller and medium on the archaeology, because
right.
Nobody's going to read a book about, somebody who was sitting in a dig site for 8 hours in the hot sun, brushing a rock for, that whole time. So that
there's bound to be an audience.
Minimizing that, and I apologize to the archaeologists that are out there. I'm going to get so much hate mail from that. That's not it. You do an amazing job, and I appreciate it, but you got to have some gunfights and some action scenes.
Right.
So anyway, this is how I found this when I was on vacation.
Right.
This is a History Channel magazine, and I don't know, that's just a barcode, but you can see 100 Greatest Mysteries.
Right.
And I was like, oh, there's my next 100 books. And then I've written about like 10 of those things. So there's my next 90 books.
Here's what's funny. I own that exact magazine.
Yeah.
And bought it for the exact same reason. I also picked up, while I was on the same trip, a coffee table book called Mysteries of History that has a ton of quirky little historic facts about history.
Well, that's awesome. I meant to have this on hand, and I don't see it laying around, but it was a book that belonged to my grandparents.
Mm-hmm.
And when they passed, we went through, when my grandfather passed, we went through the house and found, things we wanted to keep or sell or whatever. And I was little and I saw that book, and it was like 7 ancient mysteries of the world or something like that. And I was like, I got to keep this. So yeah, anytime I see anything like this, and for those listening and not watching the video, I'm holding up a History Channel magazine that's the 100 Greatest Mysteries, the World's Secrets Revealed. So I love to look through stuff like that, whether it's physical or online, and I find things that I think are super cool, and then I write about them. Now I've got a readership that emails me ideas. So
right.
they're like, hey, have you seen this? And they'll send me a link to an article or something. So now I don't even have to.
Which I consider that safer, but yeah. I've had to start discouraging readers from basically pitching to me because, no one wants to be sued. And I don't, if I'm already, I've actually literally had readers send me ideas that I was already writing about. So I had to really quickly backtrack.
Yeah.
I can't take it. But if they'll send you articles or something, I'm all about that. I love when people tag me on stuff like that.
Yeah, they don't send the ideas as much. That happened a few times, but it's mostly been like articles to like a something that was found recently might be in, some historical website or article or something like that. So
Right.
yeah,
Right.
that's always cool to get those.
I keep counseling people to go write their book, man. That's a great idea. You should go write that book, and
Yes.
that will either shut them up or get them very excited. So, and
Yeah.
I would prefer they get really excited and go write the book. Like, I would totally read that book if you wrote it.
Yes.
So you're okay. So we're very similar in that. I mean, we go and hunt down. Yeah. That's probably, I don't know, man. I've talked to a whole bunch of other thriller authors, and that's not necessarily what they do. But I think the archaeological thrillers, it kind of lends itself to that. Like you just came across some quirky fact of history.
Yeah, the other stuff that's like a spy thriller or any other kind of thrillers requires, and I'm not bashing it because I write some of those too. I write them much faster.
Yeah.
They require almost no research. You just have to know your guns and your geography and have sort of a semblance of an idea of how government works, which is it doesn't. But you just, and then you just sit down and go. With these, it just depends on the size of the novel, but sometimes maybe I'm fielding a future question, but it usually takes like 20 to 100 hours worth of research to get it right.
Yeah.
With these. And what I do is start early I start with a bunch of research up front, and then it's kind of an ongoing thing. Like I'll have to fact check stuff as I go. But
so how do you do the actual research? So you get the idea from a magazine or some other source, and then you go do some actual research. Like, how do you typically handle that?
Well, since I have a 2.5-year-old, I don't get to travel around like Dan Brown. So I can't be jet setting off to Hong Kong.
It's just excuses.
Yeah. Yeah. And I don't
spend 4 years in Spain to before writing your next book.
Yes. I did not spend 4 years in a Tibetan monastery fasting and eating nothing but grass and meditating all day long to learn the true ways of the monks there. No, I basically a lot of readers ask me this, and I always tell them the same thing. So my research comes from a couple places. One, I used to read a lot of historical books, so it comes from memory from that. Some of it comes from internet research, which has been wonderful. It's been very cool to be able to do that, and the internet speeds up the process for sure. And then the other thing, I do travel a little bit to, especially some of the United States locations, so that's easy enough. But the biggest thing is that when I do get to take a trip, whether it was a long time ago, like 1994 when I first went to Germany and Italy and Switzerland and Austria, or if it was just last year when I went on a fishing trip to Alaska, I always pay attention. I pay attention to everything. Right. So, and I take I don't take as many pictures now as I did back then. Now I just really try to remember stuff. Right. So, and that's actually a lot of my details about locations come from past travels and past experiences. So that enables me to write the people a little better, the atmosphere, the smells of the smell of the air and that sort of thing. And I also there's another component to the research, which is I talk to people. So I have a lot of readers now, and they're more than happy to share experiences from their lives, and tell me little stories about places they went. And when they offer those, I ask for more details. So I spoke to this one girl who went on a mission trip to Uganda a few years ago with the Invisible Children thing.
Right. Yeah.
To take down Coney and whatever, to help out with that. And I asked her, I said, so what was it like? And she said, it was amazing. It was an amazing experience. And it was just so cool. And I was like, that doesn't help me out. Like, I want to know, how is the food Was the food terrible? Was it salty? Was it sweet? Was it
Right.
bland? Did you eat roaches? Did you eat like beef, or did you eat like just lettuce and rice every day? What did the air smell like? Did it smell like sewage all the time, or was it dry and clean, or was it kind of humid? Like, I want to know what that is. Don't tell me it was an amazing life experience. That's a given.
Right. Yeah. Yeah.
So
Yeah. You're looking for the meat, the details.
yes. So I always ask for details like that when people tell me stuff, because I want to know so that I can share going forward. And so even though I haven't traveled to Africa, in any part of Africa, my stories go from Morocco to Egypt to Chad, down, I think maybe even to Sudan. Yeah, one of them goes to Sudan. I've never been there, but I can write those places pretty effectively because I pay attention to when, the details from people who have been there.
Right. So would you say, you're taking in all the sensory information. I mean, are you able to convey like the feeling of the place? Is that sort of the vibe that you get when you're there, or what?
Yeah, feeling is difficult for me because I'm a cyborg, so I don't actually have feelings.
I
I'm
hear you, man.
artificial intelligence.
I have a mechanical heart. I literally do.
But that's how I memorize everything.
Yeah.
People are like, "Is it an eidetic memory?" I'm like, "No, I'm a robot." No, the feelings, yeah, it is easier, especially with people who are from a place,
Yeah.
and have a real emotional attachment. So I wrote. I've never been to Istanbul, but I wrote a couple of scenes in two different books that took place in Istanbul, and I was able to do that effectively because I have a friend that's from there. And so from talking to her, just not even like trying to get research out of her, just chatting about her hometown.
Right.
One night over coffee, I was able to glean a lot of good info about that city and the people and all that stuff. So I throw that in there. And
You make a good case for just taking the time to connect to other people,
yeah.
and just have conversations. Open, you're listening more than talking kind of conversations. Which
Yeah, and if you hang out with me at a tailgate, you'll find that that's the opposite of what I do. If you come to a football tailgate in Atlanta or a soccer tailgate in Chattanooga or something, I will not shut up. I talk too
I'm the
much.
same way.
But but in a different setting, I will. Yeah, in between talking too much, I try to listen a lot and try to learn as much as I can about people and where they're from and all that. So.
Yeah, that's I think that's a valuable skill for authors, man. I mean, yeah, I wish I had developed that a little better. Maybe I should work on it.
Well, the other thing is that people like to feel important, and they like to feel like you give a crap about what they're talking about, and that's important. Like you should care what they're talking about. Like you should care who you're talking to and what they've been through in life and all that. And so, yeah, I have that empathy built in, or that caring built in already. So I always find it really fascinating to meet new people. That's one reason I love going to conferences and hanging out with people like you and other people is, it's funny because my instincts are to stay holed up here in my house and work alone like an introvert, but
Right.
I also, there's a calling inside to get out there and meet folks and learn more about their worlds and their lives and their path and all that. But
right.
Yeah, but to your question, I just remembered this. I was on a vacation in like 2012 down in South Carolina, and we stayed at this amazing resort, and my wife was there for a conference, so we didn't have to pay for that, which was cool.
Those are the best.
But that's the best. And it was an amazing resort. But when I got there, I was like, I'm going to include this place in a story one day. But it wasn't for like 3 more years I included it. But I took pictures, and I took a lot of mental pictures. I talked to the workers and stuff. And I just, from what I learned, like 3 years later, I wrote a book that included that or maybe 2 years later, I included it in that story. And
Yeah.
so always pay attention.
Yeah. Always pay attention. I think I spend half anytime we travel. I mean, I've been traveling for the past 3 or 4 months now. I'm finally home, but anytime I'm out and about in the world, I don't necessarily take notes, and maybe I should, but I've never never felt the need to per se, because I just, sort of absorb the vibe of the place. Although Facebook has become kind of my go-to note-taking device now.
Yes.
Because I post everything.
Yeah. I get that.
Yeah. So, you've got, there's 14 books in your Sean Wyatt thrillers right now, right?
14 in the canonical series, and then there's a spin-off trilogy, and there's 2 little short novellas that I give away to my readers when they subscribe, along with a couple of other full-length books. But there's a spin-off trilogy, and then there's going to be a new spin-off series for that character that already had the spin-off. There's going to be a whole new series for her, and then there's going to be 2 other spin-offs that I can think of right now. And
right.
Did that alert just go off?
I didn't hear a thing.
Okay, good, because it popped up and I heard it in this.
You could have snuck by with nothing. You could have gotten by with a completely unnoticed. Right. How does a spin-off trilogy work? What'd you do? You took one of the characters and secondary characters? Yeah,
so Adriana Villa is she's a Spanish. She's born in out just outside in the countryside of just outside of Madrid in the countryside of Spain, and her father was sort of an intel mercenary. So he was an expert at getting information, difficult to get information, and helped the U.S. government quite a bit, along with the allies of the United States government. And for years he did that, but then he's gone into hiding since then. But his daughter, their family was wealthy. They owned, coffee farms and vineyards and things like that. And as a result, they have plenty of money. And so Adriana leaned towards a life of adventure. Mm-hmm. And so after she got done at college and all that, she became very interested with the missing artwork from World War II. So the Monuments Men stuff was all that's very true. All that stuff happened. The Nazis took a lot of art and stole art from galleries and private exhibits in people's homes and things like that. And so sort of her mission is to locate the missing, the art that's missing, as much of it as she can, and return it either to the proper heirs or the governments from which it was stolen. And so as a result of that, she ends up in a lot of mysteries, a lot of adventures of her own. And so the spin-off trilogy that I did involves her and another character that appeared in the first novel that I wrote. And she was also a thief. And these two, the spin-off trilogy is called War of Thieves. And essentially, trying to think if I'm giving spoilers. I don't think so. It's been a while since I wrote that book.
Right.
So, but yeah, they are pitted against one another by this group called the Syndicate. That is this collection of ultra billionaires. And essentially they just like to manipulate people for their own entertainment. Mm-hmm. And so they pit these two against each other to find the series of paintings that went missing. And so it's sort of like Most Dangerous Game meets Monuments Men. That's the best way I could describe it. And so that's how that spin-off trilogy goes. But the new spin-off series involves her and a new extrajudicial agency called the Shadow Cell. That's the main purpose of it is to rid the world of terrorists. So
okay, I can give
yeah. And so I'm not going to give this away, but one of the characters from the rest of the stories is not in charge of this agency, but she's big in it. And everybody always asked me, what's the deal with this character?
Right.
There's something more to this person. And I'm like, yes, there is. Don't worry about it. You'll find out in 2018. Or late 2017.
Don't worry about it.
Yeah. So there's that. Yeah. So that's going to be a series of spy thrillers. They're shorter books. They're going to be like 125 pages, 150 pages a piece. and some of them might be 200 pages, but that's the main spinoff for that. And then there's some other characters in the world that are going to get their own spinoff series that are going to be focused on the history stuff. And then I'm working on another series called The Adventure Guild, which is a series for kids, and I'm co-writing that with my 9th grade cousin.
Oh, really? That's cool. That's interesting.
Chandler's getting after it. Like I started writing in high school, but I never finished anything. He's already finished like 3 or 4 stories.
Wow.
And these are like 80-page stories to 100-page stories. Like, find me a 9th grader that's written 50 pages of anything.
Exactly.
I had never did that. So he's got some really cool ideas. He really likes superhero stories, so he's focusing on that. But the Adventure Guild is a group of middle school kids who do Indiana Jones type stuff. So it's archaeological thrillers for kids.
Yeah, I get that. Way to bring it back around.
There you go.
way to give back, man. Pay it forward.
That's it.
Man, okay. That's pretty cool. I do appreciate that. That's like a mentorship kind of thing. That's pretty remarkable.
Yeah. No,
the kids in my sphere would do that. I mean, I have some very talented kids related to me, but they wouldn't want to work with me on anything. They would just go to it and probably surpass me in the process. So.
Yeah, Chandler's cool, man, and he works really hard at it. He's away at a boarding academy now, about 30 minutes south of Chattanooga, maybe 45 minutes south of Chattanooga. But so I don't get to. In the summers we meet up a lot and we do a lot of storyboarding and stuff like that. We did that this last summer before he left for school, but we started working on this project together when he was in 8th grade, and he has a lot of good ideas for it. And so when I finish the draft, I'm working on the first story now. So when I finish the rough draft, I'll send it to him and see what he thinks and have him make corrections and things, and then we'll edit and all that. But yeah,
wow,
my first collaboration project is with family. So.
Yeah, man, you're breaking all the rules. You're working with kids, working with family.
Well, I told him, I said, Chandler, because he was asking me for, like, his mom asked me for tips, and advice. And I said, forget advice. I'll show him exactly what he needs to do and I'll work with him on it. And so the first time I sat down with him, I said, I hope that he does a podcast someday, an interview with somebody, and remembers this. But I said to him, which would you rather do in high school? Would you rather get a part-time job like your dad and I did, or would you like to write books and that's how you supplement your income while you're in school? And he's like, I'd rather write books. And I'm like, exactly.
Dude, that's the most awesome story I have ever heard.
Yes. See you guys. You've been a wonderful audience.
That's it. Mic drop. We're out. Dang. Okay. You're a USA Today bestseller.
Yeah.
Is that just a completely recent event, or had you been one before this recent?
No, it's totally recent. Yeah, that just happened in October. So.
And you were very intentional about it. I remember you talking to me about it. Like, you're going to do this. I'm going to make this happen. You made it happen. What did you end up having to do? What did it take to hit the list? Yeah, so I mean, it's all. I've heard different things about the New York Times list and the USA Today list. They're both curated lists, from what I understand. Right.
So you can sell enough copies to make New York Times, and then the editor can decide to not put you in there because they want another book in there.
Right.
From what I understand, USA Today is not as bad about that, but you just got to sell a lot of books. And I had a book club feature for a book I released last year, and so I thought, okay, this is a perfect chance to leverage this and see if I can get there, because I knew I would need, ballpark like 6,000 books sold that week of that book to hit the list. And so I knew that a book club feature deal was good for at least 2,500, at least 2,000 on one day and maybe 500 or 600 on another day.
Right.
So, and then I knew the visibility would carry it a little bit, for, several hundred more. So I figured with that, I'm already halfway there. I'd be doing myself a disservice if I didn't do a big campaign push to try to hit that list. So, so I did it, and I ran a bunch of advertising on BookBub CPM ads and Facebook advertising, and yeah, I moved to like 8,000 books globally, and I think a little over 6,000 in the USA, which is what matters to USA Today. They don't count the other stuff.
That's all within just the first week. That's
just that week. Yeah. It goes from Monday to Sunday night.
They must be looking though at you need to be wide in order to do this, I think, because I know plenty of people who do more than 6,000 a week on a release for like KU, but
yeah, well, it depends, right? So I don't think they count borrows, and I don't think that they and I don't know. There's people that are in the know more than me. I know, like Cheryl Bradshaw and Diane Capri know way more about that stuff than I do, and they're and they, by the way, were extremely helpful for me when I was trying to make that push, and having dinner with them and at NINC really. Right. Like it was a big.
I love Diane. She's one of my favorite people.
They're awesome. And it's so funny that it was great that I got to meet her because I'd been interacting with her online for so long and never actually sat down and chatted with her in person, and never even seen her in person. So that was cool. But yeah, so the issue with hitting that list really has more to do with timing than anything else. So some weeks, like if you try to hit that list in February, it might take 5,000 units instead of 6. And if you try like right now, as of the recording of this, like a week before Thanksgiving, you'd probably have to move 7,000 to 7,500 units in the USA to hit that list because the competition's so much higher.
Right. So you're saying do it in the dead of summer is the better way to go.
Do it in the... I did it. My timing was great because it was and it was totally by accident, but I was just lucky. The BookBub feature I had was a week before most of the traditional publishers released their Christmas stock or their late fall stock, and so the next week, 1 week later, the volume I moved probably wouldn't have done it. So. Yeah. But, the other thing too, on top of the market, this is what's crazy. Like I didn't do anything with other authors. So I didn't ask them, if they would help out and reach out to their readers that might like my stuff. I don't like bothering people about that. If somebody emails me and asks me to do that, I'll take a look at their books. And if it fits, what my readers like, then I'll do it. Yeah. But like I know you and Jack Patterson and some other guys that that are like me. I don't use any profanity in my stories. Right. And you
very
guys are
little. I maybe have a little here and there, but
and there's no sex and stuff like that. And so I'm happy to promote other authors who have stories along those lines, even if they aren't archaeological thrillers. If they're spy stories or whatever. Yeah, that's right. I just drop it in there. Dropping it in there.
I think it's going to be a drinking game now. Where every time you hear archaeological thriller,
I'm waiting for Barnes and Amazon and Apple to put the category up. I don't know what
that needs to be its own BISAC category, man. That's right. When you got guys like you got Cussler, you got Dan Brown, you got a whole bunch of people out there writing that genre. I mean, and selling, hitting mega lists and stuff. I mean, come on, it needs to be its own BISAC category.
How it's not is nobody's thought of it.
Who do we lobby? Who do we approach? We need to find the governing body of the BISAC.
I've never had an original idea before, so I have no idea. Like this is the first time.
Well, and it's funny because as soon as you said that, we were at NINC. As soon as you said that, I'm like, holy crap, that's exactly what it is. And then I'm like, no one has ever thought of this before. And then I go online and I look and I'm like, oh yeah, everybody's thought of it. It's everywhere. There's everybody who writes anything remotely like what we write puts it in archaeological thriller.
Do they really?
Yeah. We just completely missed it.
On my parade.
We just completely missed it. But that's okay. It means it works.
So I'm still looking for my original idea. Awesome.
Yeah. One day, your ship will come in.
Someday.
It's gonna have one crate, but it'll be there.
One crate. That's it. One crate. Well, you know what they say. Ideas are a dime a dozen, but execution is everything. So.
Yeah, man. And I had this conversation with someone recently and I forget who it was. Maybe it was you. We're talking about how, or no, actually, it comes from Dan Brown's latest Origin, talking about the fact that anyone can have the idea, and it really is all about the execution. But it's not just the execution either. It's individual taste, individual style can influence the impact of that idea, So nothing we write about really is all that original. I mean, I wrote a book about finding Atlantis, and there's nothing original about that as an idea.
Right.
But I made it original by adding other elements. So
yes,
there.
And I haven't read that yet, but I'm really interested in doing it because I'm fascinated about like Atlantis and all that. Like, I think that it's a cool, what would you call it? A plot. I don't know if it's a plot device, but yeah, I mean, the whole Atlantis thing is so fascinating.
I mean, yeah, I grew up. That was a whole pressing story. I mean,
yes,
it has been for thousands of years. I mean, there's nothing remarkable about that, but that was one of those stories, like you talked about earlier, that just, you want to know so bad what the truth is that you probably mull over 1,000 possibilities. I could write 100 books about the discovery of Atlantis, and every one of them would have a different plot. So
yeah. Well,
maybe I should.
My theory on Atlantis, and I'm sure this isn't an original idea either, but as a creationist, I often get into discussions with people who don't believe in a creator or creation, creation theory, which is funny because it's just as valid a theory as evolution.
Right.
But I get into discussions about that, and they're like, okay, so you believe in the flood story? Yeah. You believe that there's somewhere in this world there's enough water to cover Mount Everest? And my answer is no. The water's still there. Like whatever civilizations were destroyed, I think are still underwater.
Yeah.
And I think that the water's receded. And why does every culture have a flood story? Every culture. And people are like, the naysayers are like, well, word travels fast. No, it doesn't.
But there are completely disconnected cultures that have
not since Pangea.
Right.
And you can say, well, people traveled. And I do believe that there was intercontinental, boat travel before we even imagined, before Columbus and before all that. I do believe that. But it's like, you cannot tell me that Incans up on the top of Machu Picchu and people in Japan have the same they have similar stories.
Right.
The cultures are vastly different. There's no way they were communicating, and it's not a shared thing. Like these people all experienced the same thing.
Well, if they were communicating, that's a whole other story to tell. Like there's something else there, man.
Yeah. But that's my theory about Atlantis, is that it was a great civilization that's still underwater, and maybe it happened maybe it was there pre-flood, and that's where the legends came from, or maybe it was post-flood.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, but.
Well, you've heard. Did you hear about they discovered a lost underwater city like off the coast of Australia that's been kind of right there under everyone's nose for.
I want to say I saw that article come through somebody sent it to me. I think one of my readers.
If you're not already, you need to subscribe to Atlas Obscura online. I need to buy the book. The book is amazing.
I'm putting it on my phone. I'm making a note.
Totally
Atlas
need to do it.
Obscura.
And now I have to put it in the mentions of the show. Damn it! I hate when I mention things.
Obscura.
Hold on, everybody, while we both go and add
Yeah, I'm working while I'm doing the interview.
Man, that's what, it never stops, dude. It never stops. All
Well,
right.
there's so much we don't know about the ancient world, and it's crazy because the world's getting smaller all the time, and we keep finding this stuff. Like what is it? Goleki Tempe or whatever in Turkey. That's they're saying that civilization was 10 or 11,000 years old. There's Aboriginal stuff that's like 40,000 years old, and there's they found those giant. Have you seen the giant underwater stones they found off the coast of Japan? Like those things are clearly shaped and angled, and they're massive. There's the Bimini Road down the Caribbean. There's I guess it's off the coast of Florida maybe, but or Bahamas, I don't remember. But it's incredible all the stuff we don't know about the ancient world and the antediluvian world and all that stuff. And I'm just glad that people like you write archaeological thrillers to delve into those possibilities.
Back at you, brother. That's what. That's why we're here. We're here to keep each other entertained and distracted, while the rest of the world goes on with their silly little political wars.
Yes.
So, all right, man. Well, we're at time.
Oh wow, that went fast.
I know, man. That's the way it goes when you're having fun. They go very quickly.
Did you get all your questions asked?
Man, I never have questions in advance. I should have told you. I should have said something about that when we started. I make this up. Okay. I make everything up. I'm a complete pantser in everything I do. I did mean to ask you if you're a plotter or a pantser, though. You're clearly a plotter.
Both. So I do what I call a story. I do a scene map or a story map at the beginning. So I write the end. I write what I want to happen at the end. Mm-hmm. And then sometimes I don't do that, but usually I write what happens at the end, and then I know where I'm going. And then I work in Scrivener, so I just go in and I put chapter by chapter a one-line synopsis of what happens in every chapter. Uh-huh. And that's kind of how I storyboard it. And that's about the extent of my outline. I do about 2,000 to 3,000 words of brainstorming in my research section of Scrivener, so that I have a good sense of what's going on and the characters. I'll write, several paragraphs about each character and that sort of stuff. The new characters, the old ones, I don't need to do that, but yeah. So I'm like sort of pants, but when I do a good outline, I can write so much faster.
Yeah. So, I could see it. I mean, I don't know. I've tried to do the outlining thing. I did have to finally break down and start keeping, and I've tried all the various software packages to do this, and nothing makes me happy, but I keep an Apple Note with a list of all the characters in my Dan Kotler series. Any series I write or any books I write, I create a note, and I have all the characters, and I basically have like one or two paragraphs next to each name that says, here's all the important stuff about that character. So no bios, no photos. I don't have any of that stuff.
and you do sci-fi as well, you said?
Yeah, although I've kind of
missed that when we were talking about it.
Yeah. So I think I screwed you over and did not mean to.
Wow.
You were kind enough to send something out for me promoting one of my thrillers, and I didn't tell you that it was in KU right now.
Oh yeah. No, that's okay. So no, it's fine. I recommended your books to my readers, and I got some emails back from the Nook people.
And here's the deal:
they said they didn't. They were read on Nook. How can I get this book? And so
I said, tell them to reach out to me. Yeah.
So tell them to reach out to you.
Yeah.
Okay.
I'll help them out.
All right, cool.
Here's the deal. I'm a big believer in don't give advice you're not willing to follow. Right. Yeah. So I have always advised people that the best way to use Kindle Unlimited, if you're going to use it at all, is right at the beginning, build your platform with it. Get some money going, get some buzz going, get some reviews going. Amazon reviews are very helpful even on other platforms. So I used for this series right now. There are 3 books and a novella in that series. It's pretty new. So as I'm writing more books, I'm I'm dropping it in KU, and then I've got a strategy that's based essentially on when I'm already there. Honestly, I'm considering moving everything wide again, but once the actual sales outnumber the page reads, and I'm getting more royalty from sales, then I can start. The strategy is to move outward. So, and probably just a book or two at a time. But anyway, I'm aiming for like 10 or 12 books before I do that. So
okay,
I didn't mean to screw you over.
You didn't screw me over at all. No, it didn't screw me over. I was just I knew I was going to get when I realized it. I knew I was going to get emails from my Apple and my Nook and Kobo readers. But yeah, what would be the best way? Or do you want me to send? You want to send me that in a private?
Yeah, we'll talk.
Okay, we'll talk off the record about how those people should contact you.
Let's just say this. I am actively looking for excuses for data that I can use to say it's time to go wide, right?
Okay. Yeah.
And this is what I tell people all the time. If you've got people who are complaining that they can't get your book on another platform, that's a good problem to have. It's probably time to think about going wide. So if I get a few thousand people saying, I really like your book, but it's not on Nook, it's not on iBooks, I'd be
tonight you will get 100,000 emails.
If I do, dude, and tomorrow morning you will be able to buy this book everywhere.
There you go. There you go. Cool.
KDP Select or no KDP Select. All right, man. All right. Well, we're gonna go ahead and wrap up. I appreciate you being on, man. I really do. I think we're kindred spirits in this.
For sure. So. Yeah, I wish we'd talk more often, but I know
we
you're
will.
always on the road.
Here's the sad part. I said to you, let's talk. Let's be buddies. Let's work together. And I promptly disappeared for like 3 months.
It's okay.
So we'll do that. We will do that. I promise you. But we are, and at any rate, where can people find you and things you related online?
Well, my website's a good place to start, ernestdempsey.net. There's no A in Ernest, so because I don't do things earnestly, I'm just Ernest. So
you have no idea how difficult it's going to be for me to not name this episode "The Importance of Being Ernest Dempsey."
You should. I think you should name it that. But leave the A out of Ernest, and then you'll have it. Yes, Oscar Wilde, right? He was an interesting character. That was a good story.
That's a good story. Yeah.
Yeah, so ernestdempsey.net or go to facebook.com/ernestdempsey. I have a fan page there, and those are the two best places. But if you go to my website, ernestdempsey.net, there's a link at the top where you can click that, and it'll take you to a page where you can sign up to get free books and stuff like that. And so I give away like 4 free digital books when you sign up, and so
that's fantastic.
That gets you started in the series and all that. So.
All right, man. Okay. Well, on that note, you'll be able to find this, by the way, dear listener and viewer, in the show notes of this episode. So make sure you're looking down below on YouTube and visiting wordslingerpodcast.com for this episode. Don't have a number for you yet, but you'll be able to search Ernest Dempsey and find it. Otherwise, you probably came in from somewhere important like iTunes or Stitcher or Google Play or whatever. So hang out, Ernest. We're going to do the Wordslinger after show
Cool.
For everyone else.
Everybody loves an after party.
Everybody loves the after party.
Is it better than the party itself?
It is the party. This is just preamble to the party.
So this is a pregame. We're in the pregame show.
Now we're heading into we're getting into crunch time now. So everybody, you're probably hearing the groovy theme music. You may dance in place at will, and we'll see you on the other side with some announcements and housekeeping. Otherwise, we'll talk to you all next week. Of course, you don't have to wait till next week. You just wait a couple of seconds, and the future comes rushing at you. I hope you enjoyed that interview with Ernie. I love Ernie, man. He and I we're very much alike. I sometimes get the impression he's a lot cooler than I am. That's probably not a false impression at all. I mean, he was apparently in a band at some point. I don't think he may not want me to tell anybody that. Sorry, Ernie. But he's got these books of his. He's 14 in, and they're doing great. And I'm very impressed with how he's pulling it all together. The whole archaeological thriller thing, man. Here's the deal with that, for me at least. It was a life-changing kind of thing for me to get into, because I love telling a good story. I love the fantastic stories, of course. But I've always had a love for history, and I've always had a love for, the cleverness of humanity. So I created a character who could be clever in the face of, strange facts. I try not to do anything supernatural in my books. I'm tempted. I'm always tempted, and I may in the future. I may breach that. I don't want to go too overboard, but we live in a fairly strange and paranormal world sometimes. It would be kind of interesting to see how Dan Kotler handles that sort of thing, but maybe in the future. But anyway, archaeological thrillers are kind of this grounded type of story where I get to show off the sort of the strengths of humanity, and I dig that. I really like that. I like the history of it. I like delving into new ideas, new sciences, exploring the world through the eyes of that character. So I'm kind of grateful to Ernie for, helping me figure out what to call it. So anyway, all right. That was a great interview. Please check out Ernie's stuff at his website, of course, and other places. You can go to it's ernestdempsey.com, I believe, or ernestdempsey.net. I knew it was not .com. ernestdempsey.net. You'll find links to all that in the show notes. You'll also find some links to our stories from this week. This week in indie publishing news. So Barnes & Noble has relaunched the Nook Press platform. BN thinks it's the third time is the charm, basically. As they once again rebrand and relaunch their self-publishing platform, the Barnes & Noble Nook Press platform has officially been relaunched as a much easier mouthful Barnes & Noble Press, a publishing device that will include both. This will include both ebooks and print on demand, right? The move is a surprise to practically everyone. Because most of us had written off Barnes & Noble after rumors and announcements about its Nook platform. It started to sound a little bit like a death knell. But hopes and speculation are both on the rise after BN's press release stating that, among other things, they'll be offering an increased royalty rate of 65%, which actually brings them fairly on par with Draft Digital, for example, and others. They're getting into that range at least. So 65% for ebooks priced at $10 and above, and the ability to set pre-orders for up to 12 months in advance. Now that's new and cool. So I'm wondering if this changes the future of BN. Like, does Barnes & Noble, do they become a better and bigger competitor on the ebook stage? That's a question I'd like an answer to. Some speculation. So feel free to comment on the show notes of this page, of this podcast at wordslingerpodcast.com. Let me know. You can hit me with a contact if you want. I'd be happy to hear your thoughts on this. So the next story is Findaway Voices has become a gateway to Google Play. Google Play recently announced that they are getting into the audiobook game. They're going to start a catalog there. Findaway actually is the largest audiobook distributor on the planet, and you may remember that Findaway and Draft Digital partnered on the launch of Voices, which is Findaway's indie publishing arm. So that platform actually gives you some advantages in that you can produce and distribute your audiobooks worldwide without any sort of exclusivity arrangement, the way that Audible's ACX does. So that's great news this is great news for the indie publishing community, honestly. One thing that I'm interested in, I want to see where this goes. So Draft Digital has had some trouble with getting Google Play to basically play ball and come back with terms that we can agree to so that we can start distributing ebooks on that platform. So I'm hoping that this will be a gateway to help us get in there. But I'm really interested. I'm curious if this is going to mean that indie authors and indie publishers are going to have a much greater presence on Google Play in general, and what that's going to do to the industry. So, again, let me know what you think of that. What kind of move do you see this as for Google Play? I'm glad, and congratulations to Kelly Lytle and the bunch at Findaway. This is fantastic news for them. I'm just very curious to see where this goes. Walmart is in the news for indie publishing. That was unexpected. Walmart and Rakuten have partnered. Now, initially they partnered in order for Walmart to be able to start delivering groceries in Japan. So those two major companies formed that partnership, and as part of that partnership, Kobo will now be able to distribute its ebooks and audiobooks to Walmart.com. Now that's a major move. Kobo was already global. They already did have a presence in the U.S., but what this does is allow Kobo to have a much greater presence in the U.S. ebook market. And it also positions Walmart to potentially topple Amazon as the king of the hill when it comes to ebooks and ebook distribution, and topple Audible as well. So now this comes, by the way, in the wake of Apple is starting to retool and approach the ebook market again. We talked about that last week. There are all these major players starting to emerge, and everyone has their sights on Amazon. Now, this can't help but be a good thing for indie publishing. This greater competition among the giants means that we get more windfall and more fruit shaken from the tree. This is my personal take on it, at least. Having these companies kind of battle each other means we should be able to negotiate some better terms all around. Now, I'm looking forward to that. I'm looking forward to seeing what happens. It would be quite interesting for me to be able to point people to Walmart to get my books. And if so, with everybody entering the publishing on demand game, and Kobo having an in with Walmart, so I think we're not far from potentially having the ability to put indie books on Walmart shelves. I think there are going to be some rules, regulations, and best practices involved in the process behind that. And I don't think it's just going to be as simple as clicking a button, but I think it's going to be a potential. I think it's going to be awesome. So let me know. What do you think of that? Is this Walmart and Rakuten? Man, I'm never going to get that right. Rakuten getting involved in such a way that they can take dominance of the market? Let me know. That's it for news this week. I've got those three stories you'll be able to read on the show notes of this page. Thank you for being a supporter of the show. You're just by listening, you're being a supporter of the show. So I really appreciate that. You can further support this show by checking out our sponsors, of course, Draft Digital, KDP Rocket. You can take control, get more readers, increase your Kindle rankings. You can check that out at bit.ly/KDP Slinger. That's a great tool. I use that tool regularly. You can also support the show, of course, if you subscribe to us on iTunes, Stitcher, now on YouTube. And, of course, on iTunes, if you'll leave a review, just go and click 4 or 5 stars if you feel like it. And drop a note that says, I like listening to the Word Slinger podcast because blank. And, help other people find the show. That's what we're about. I got some fantastic guests coming up, by the way. I don't want to tease one in particular because I haven't actually done the interview yet. The interview is on Monday. But once that interview is done, I will tease the crap out of it. But I got a major internationally recognized thriller author on the hook, and I'm going to be chatting with him on Monday. So unless that falls apart. If that falls apart, I got a little bit of egg on my face. But I'm looking forward to that conversation. I'm pretty excited about it. And I know you're going to be too. You can support the show also on Patreon. Now I'm very close to being able to offer the bonus material. I've got a whole bunch of my Wordslinger After Show episodes. I need to jump in, get them edited and polished, and start releasing them onto Patreon. I'm figuring that platform out. I got some things going there. So, for those who support the show financially, you'll be able to have access to that content once it's ready. Every dime you throw my way through Patreon gets used in the overhead of the show, so I appreciate your help. Pays for hosting, pays for equipment, pays for whatever. So, of course, the best way to support me and my work, of course, always, is to go check out kevintomlinson.com/books. My newest Dan Kotler thriller, The Girl in the Mine Tomb, released last Friday, so that is available right now on Amazon. You can go check it out. Go to books2read.com, books2read.com/Mayan-tomb, and that will take you straight to that book's product page. If you've read it, by the way, leave me a review. I appreciate that. But this is probably one of my favorites so far out of these thrillers. These are getting better. Every time I write a new one, I'm more excited than I was about the last, and this is just turning into the work of my life. So I'm very much enamored of this. So anyway, thank you so much. We're at 1:11 now, so I'm going to go ahead and wrap us up. We ran long, but I appreciate you hanging around, and I thank you so much for being a part of the Wordslinger podcast. I hope you're getting a lot out of it. Share it with your friends. Share us on social media. Follow us at WordslingerPod on Twitter. And, of course, you can go to facebook.com/WordslingerPodcast. And hop on over to wordslingerpodcast.com and kevintomlinson.com and say hello. I always respond to emails. So thanks a lot. Take care of yourselves out there. God bless each and every one of you. I'll see you all next time.
Wordslinger.